The bass thrummed through the gymnasium walls like a heartbeat gone wrong. The annual school dance, in the heart of rural Texas, pulsing with teenage energy under strings of fairy lights. Sofia Ferreira, 19, and radiant in a simple blue dress that caught the glow, had come hoping for a night of normalcy, away from the farm chores and the quiet worries of her life. But now, in a shadowed corner near the bleachers, her world shattered. Her date, Tyler Hargrove, the cocky son of the town councilman who owned half the land this side of the county line, had cornered her after a spilled drink-turned-argument. His hand lashed out, not in play, but with a force that left her cheeks stinging, her vision blurring as she stumbled back against the cold metal wall. Whispers rippled from the crowd. Kids frozen in place, phones half raised but silent, the weight of his father's influence hanging like a noose. Sophia's heart pounded, fear twisting into isolation as no one stepped forward, the music drowning out her choked sob. She fumbled for her phone, fingers trembling, and typed the words that would summon the storm. "Brother, come get me. He hit me." 30 miles out on a dusty back road, under the vast Texas sky bruised with twilight, Lucas Knox Ferreira hunched over the open hood of a battered Harley in his garage. At 34, Knox was a shadow of a man, broad-shouldered from years wrenching engines, his face etched with faint scars from a past he kept buried under grease and silence. The air smelled of oil and rain-damp earth, the low rumble of his radio playing old country tunes the only company in his solitary world. He'd traded the roar of his old life for this, fixing bikes for locals, riding solo with the Iron Promise crew only when the road called. But family? That was the one promise he couldn't outrun. His phone buzzed on the workbench, the screen lighting up like a flare. He wiped his hands on a rag, glanced at the message, and the world narrowed to a pinpoint. Sophia, his little sister, the one he'd sworn to protect after their parents crashed 10 years back, a vow whispered over their graves, etched into his soul like the club's iron patch on his leather vest. Knox didn't hesitate. The engine roared to life beneath him, a beast awakening, tires kicking up gravel as he tore onto the highway. The wind whipped through his salt and pepper beard, carrying the faint scent of wild mesquite as headlights blurred past. 20 minutes felt like eternity, his mind replaying fragments. Sophia as a kid, tagging along on rides, her laughter cutting through his grief, the way she'd looked at him last Christmas, eyes pleading for him to stay clean, to stay whole. Hargrove's name burned in his thoughts, the councilman's boy, shielded by money and power, the kind of rot that festered in small towns like theirs. Knox's grip tightened on the handlebars, knuckles white. This wasn't just about blood. It was about the code. The unspoken oath of the Iron Promise, you don't let the innocent fall. By the time the gym's lights pierced the night, 30 minutes sharp, Knox was a force uncoiling, his arrival a thunderclap that silenced the festivities. He killed the engine outside the double doors, the sudden quiet amplifying the muffled beats inside. Pushing through, Knox's boots echoed on the polished floor, his frame cutting a path through the stunned crowd like a blade. Eyes turned, kids in awkward clusters, teachers hovering uncertainly, the air thick with the tang of punch and sweat. There, by the punch bowl, Sophia sat on a folding chair, her dress rumpled, a makeshift ice pack from the nurse pressing against her face. Bruises bloomed faintly under her eye, signs of aggression that twisted Knox's gut like a wrench. She looked up, relief flooding her features, and stood shakily as he crossed the room in strides that parted the sea of onlookers. "Knox," she whispered, voice breaking as he pulled her into a fierce hug, his calloused hands gentle on her shoulders. The gym held its breath. Tyler lurked in the back, smirking with false bravado, his father's shadow looming even here. "What happened?" Knox's voice was low, steady as engine idle, but laced with the steel of restrained fury. Sophia leaned into him, the warmth of his vest grounding her. He got mad." Over nothing. I just want to go home. Knox's eyes scanned the room, locking on the principal, a wiry man named Ellis who fidgeted with his tie. "This ends now," Knox said, not to her, but to the air, the promise hanging heavy. He guided Sophia toward the exit, but paused, turning back to the frozen assembly. "Anyone saw something? Speaks up. For her." Murmurs stirred. A girl in the corner nodding faintly, another whispering about "not the first time." Knox filed it away, the seed of something bigger planting in the silence. Outside, the night air cooled his skin, stars pricking the sky like distant witnesses. He settled Sophia on his bike, draping his jacket over her, the leather a shield against the chill. As the engine growled awake, Knox felt the pull of the old life stirring, the iron promise brothers waiting for his call, a family forged in fire, ready to stand. This message from his sister wasn't just a plea. It was the spark that would ignite a reckoning, forcing the town to face the darkness it had buried under polite smiles and powerful names. For Knox, it was redemption's call, the promise he'd nearly forgotten, now roaring back to life. If you're watching this and feeling that pull of family and justice, smash that like button right now. It helps spread these stories of quiet courage to more corners of the world. The road home stretched dark and endless, but for the first time in years, Knox rode with purpose, the weight of loyalty lifting the shadows from his heart. Sophia clung to him, her breath steadying against the wind, unaware yet of the storm her brother would unleash. Back at the garage, as he helped her inside and brewed strong coffee laced with concern, Knox's phone stayed close. He'd call the crew at dawn, Rico, the ex-Marine with a laugh like gravel, Lena, the tough nurse who'd patched more than wounds, the whole iron promise riding as one. But tonight, it was just them, brother and sister, against the encroaching night. Sophia curled on the worn couch, the ice pack forgotten, her voice soft. "You came so fast. I didn't think." "Always," Knox replied. Sitting across from her, the lamplight casting long shadows on his scarred hands. "That's the deal, from the day I promised Ma and Pa." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Tyler's dad. He runs everything. They'll cover it up." Knox's jaw set, the mechanic in him already piecing together the broken parts. "Not this time. We'll get the truth out. Witnesses, footage, whatever it takes." No. As the clock ticked past midnight, the first threads of the fight wove tight. Knox stepped outside, lighting a cigarette under the stars, the smoke curling like unanswered questions. The town had ignored the signs before, whispers of other girls, patterns of protected aggression swept under rugs of influence. But Knox Ferreira wasn't one to bend. This was his line in the sand, drawn with the ink of blood and honor. The iron promise would ride for Sophia, not with fists first, but with the unyielding force of justice long overdue. And in that quiet vigil, Knox felt the scars of his past, lost battles, broken trusts, begin to mend, one revving heartbeat at a time. Dawn broke over the Ferreira garage like a reluctant witness, painting the rusted tools and scattered parts in hues of gold and rust. Knox had barely slept. The cigarette from last night long stubbed out, his mind churning through the night's fragments like a faulty carburetor. Sophia stirred inside, the scent of fresh coffee pulling her from uneasy dreams. But Knox was already moving, grabbing his keys, vest slung over one shoulder, the iron promise patch glinting like a badge of forgotten oaths. He couldn't let the darkness settle, not on her, not on the promises that bound him tighter than any chain. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. He stepped back inside, the screen door creaking softly, and found Sophia at the kitchen table, her cheek now a shadowed bloom of purple under the morning light, filtering through cracked blinds. She sipped the coffee he'd brewed, steam rising like unspoken fears, her fingers tracing the rim of the mug. Knox slid into the chair opposite, his presence a solid anchor in the small space cluttered with farm relics. Their parents' old photo on the wall, faded smiles from a life before the skid marks and twisted metal stole it away. "Tell me everything," he said, voice gravel rough from the sleepless hours, eyes steady on hers. No judgment, just the quiet insistence of a man who'd pieced together worse wrecks. Sophia hesitated, the words catching like dust in her throat. "It started small. Tyler asked me to the dance, said it was just fun, no pressure, but after the punch spilled he changed, grabbed my arm hard, yanked me to the corner, said I embarrassed him." Her voice cracked, gaze dropping to the table. Then the slap, not hard enough to break anything, but enough to make the room spin. Everyone saw Knox, but no one moved. His dad, Councilman Hargrove, he donates to the school, fixes roads, makes sure things stay quiet. Knox nodded slowly, the pieces slotting in, power like oil, slick and smothering. He'd heard the whispers before, riding through town with the crew, girls from the edges, stories of advances turned sour, complaints vanishing into thin air. "You remember who was closest? That girl who nodded last night?" "Emily. Yeah, she's in my class. And there's Mia. She dated Tyler last year, said he got rough once, but her folks hushed it up." Sophia's eyes lifted, a spark of fire amid the hurt. "They can't just bury this." "They won't." Knox's hand covered hers briefly, calluses rough against her skin. A silent vow renewed. He stood, the chair scraping like a starting line. "Rest here today, lock the doors, I'll handle the rest." The Harley thundered to life outside, kicking up dust that swirled in the sunlight as Knox pointed it toward town. The road unspooled under his tires, mesquite bushes blurring into green streaks, the air sharp with the promise of heat. First stop, the school, before the principal could spin his web. Ellis's office sat in the admin building, a squat brick affair ringed by flagpoles that snapped in the breeze. Knox parked with a deliberate rumble, drawing stares from early arrivals, teachers unloading boxes, kids milling with backpacks slung low. He found Ellis in the hallway, clipboard in hand, pretending to check lockers. The man's face paled at the sight of Knox's bulk filling the doorway, leather creaking as he approached. "Mr. Ferreira," Ellis stammered, adjusting his glasses. "This is a school. What brings you—" "Sophia, last night." Knox's tone was even, but his stance blocked the escape, arms crossed like iron bars. "I need the security footage from the gym." Ellis blinked, sweat beading on his brow despite the cool corridor air. "Footage? It's not that simple. Privacy policies, you understand. And Tyler's father is a donor, I get it." Knox leaned in, voice dropping to a rumble that echoed off the tiles. "But my sister's hurt. Signs of aggression on tape. Hand it over, or I start asking around." Loudly. The principal fidgeted, glancing at the empty hall as if expecting rescue. After a tense beat, he sighed, leading Knox to a back room where a dusty monitor flickered to life. The grainy feed played, the dance in motion, Sophia laughing at first, then the spill, Tyler's shadow pulling her aside. The slap, a blur of motion, her recoil clear even in pixels. Knox's jaw clenched, the image searing like a brand. "Copy it, now!" As Ellis fumbled with a USB drive, Knox's phone buzzed. "Rico." His right hand in the iron promise, the ex-Marine who'd pulled him from the bottle after the war scars ran deep. "Boss? Heard about Sophia. Crew's gearing up. What's the play?" "Shield her first," Knox replied, eyes on the screen. "Lean her at the clinic, have her check Sophia over, document everything, and round up the brothers. Quiet rides through town. Eyes on Hargrove's place." "Done. We're family, Knox. Iron holds." The call ended as Ellis handed over the drive, his hand trembling. "This stays between us. The councilman—" Knox pocketed it without a word. turning on his heel. Outside, the sun climbed higher, baking the asphalt, but Knox's blood ran cool with purpose. Next, witnesses. He cruised to the diner on Main, a weathered spot where locals nursed coffees and traded gossip over plates of eggs. Emily was there, huddled in a booth with Mia, their whispers halting as Knox entered, the bell above the door jingling like a warning. "Mind if I join?" he asked, sliding in uninvited. The girls exchanged glances, but Emily nodded, her ponytail bobbing. "We saw," she said softly, stirring her soda. "Tyler. He's done it before. Pushed Mia last spring, left marks, but her dad works for Hargrove, said to drop it or lose the job." Mia nodded, voice barely above the sizzle of the grill. "And there's others. A girl from the next town over, transferred after. Something similar. They protect him. Always." Knox listened, the air thick with fry oil and fear, jotting notes on a napkin, names, dates, patterns emerging like cracks in dry earth. "You speak up, it's protected. Iron promise backs it. No one touches you." By noon, he'd gathered 3 statements, voices gaining strength in the telling, the weight of silence lifting. Back on the bike, the wind carried the faint tang of river mud as he looped toward the clinic. Lena met him at the door, her scrubs crisp, eyes sharp as she reviewed Sophia's incoming file. Bruising consistent with a strike, no breaks but emotionally. She's tough, like her brother. Knox exhaled, the clinic's sterile scent grounding him. "Good. Keep her here a bit. I'll ride out, check Hargrove's spread." The councilman's estate loomed on the outskirts, a sprawling ranch with white fences and guards that eyed Knox's approach like a threat. He didn't stop, just cruised past slow, noting the trucks, the shadows of men moving in the yard, power on display, but brittle under scrutiny. Tyler's car sat in the drive, fresh from the dance, a mocking gleam. As the afternoon waned, Knox returned to the garage, the USB and notes tucked safe. Sophia was back, bandaged and brewing tea, her smile tentative but real. "Any luck?" "Enough to start." He sat with her, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the floor. The iron promise would convene at dusk, Rico's text confirming the meet at the old mill, engines gathering like thunder. This wasn't vengeance, it was truth, peeling back the layers of corruption one witness at a time. Knox felt the old scars itch, reminders of battles lost to doubt, but here, with Sophia's quiet trust, redemption whispered close. The town had ignored the rot too long. Now, the mechanic's steady hands would dismantle it, piece by unyielding piece, honoring the promise that had called him from the dark. The old mill on the river's edge stood like a forgotten sentinel, its weathered timbers groaning under the weight of dusk as the Iron Promise crew assembled. Knox pulled up last, the Harley's growl fading into the chorus of idling engines, 10 bikes in a loose semicircle, their chrome catching the last rays of sun like polished blades. Rico leaned against his chopper, arms crossed over his faded marine ink, while Lena idled nearby on her sleek Indian, her nurse's kit strapped to the side like armor. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp moss and motor oil, the river murmuring secrets below the cracked concrete dock. These weren't outlaws. They were the quiet guardians of small-town oaths, bound by scars, and the code that Knox had helped forge after his own wars left him hollow. He killed the engine and dismounted, boots crunching gravel as the crew turned to him, faces etched with the day's grit. No greetings, just nods, the language of men who'd ridden through fire. Knox pulled the USB from his pocket, holding it up like evidence in a courtroom of shadows. Sophia's safe for now, but this, footage from the gym, clear as day, and statements, 3 girls, patterns of the same rot. Hargrove's boy isn't a one-off. He's the tip of something buried deep. Rico stepped forward, his gravel voice cutting the hush. "Councilman's got the sheriff in his pocket. We push too hard. They push back. With badges, not fists. He glanced at the others. Jax, the burly welder with a limp from Nam echoes. Maria, the ex-cop who'd traded her shield for leathers after seeing too much blue on brown injustice. The crew murmured agreement, the weight of small-town corruption settling like river fog. Knox met Rico's gaze, steady as a locked axle. We don't push with fists. We push with truth. Witnesses first. Protect them. Get more talking. Lena, Sophia needs a full check tomorrow. Document every shadow on her skin. Jax, your cousin at the county records, dig for old complaints, anything that vanished. He paused, the mill's wheel creaking in the breeze, a rhythmic reminder of time grinding on. And eyes on the Hargrove place. No contact, just watch. If they move on Sophia, we move first. Lena revved her engine lightly, the thrum vibrating through the group. She's tough. Knox, reminds me of you after that roadside scrape 2 summers back. Bruised but unbroken. I'll have her in by 9. Photos, notes, the works. Makes it official. Harder to bury. The plans solidified in clipped words. Maps sketched on a napkin under the beam of a headlight. Routes to patrol the farm. Shifts to shadow the school. As the meeting broke, engines roaring to life in staggered waves. Knox lingered by the water, the cool spray misting his face. The iron promise wasn't blood, but it was family, chosen in the roar of the road, tempered by losses that mirrored his own, the crash that took his parents, the ghosts of deployments that still woke him sweating. This fight for Sophia, it was the thread pulling them all tighter, a promise against the cynicism that choked the town. Night deepened as Knox rode home, stars wheeling overhead like distant campfires. The garage lights spilled warm onto the porch where Sophia waited, wrapped in a blanket, a mug of chamomile steaming in her hands. The bruise on her cheek had darkened to a stormy purple, but her eyes held a new resolve, sharpened by the day's revelations. She rose as he approached, the screen door whispering shut behind her. "They're with us?" she asked, voice soft against the cricket chorus. "All in." Knox draped his vest over the railing, the patch's iron gleam fading in the shadows. He joined her on the steps, the wood cool under his palms. "Rico's got patrol starting tonight, Lena tomorrow. We're building the case, footage, words from those girls. It stacks up. They can't ignore it." Sophia nodded, sipping her tea, the herbal scent mingling with the night's jasmine. "Emily called earlier, said Mia's scared, but she'll sign something. And there's talk. Tyler's been bragging at practice like it's a joke. His dad's already calling parents, smoothing it over." Knox's hand clenched on his knee, the mechanic's instinct to fix warring with the soldier's caution. "Let him, makes the cracks show, but you stay put, no school till this settles." Inside, the kitchen clock ticked like a metronome, marking the hours till dawn. Knox brewed decaf, the pot hissing as steam curled toward the ceiling fan's lazy spin. They talked in low tones, fragments of the past surfacing. How Sophia had nursed him through withdrawals after the service, her small hands steady where his shook. The promise he'd made at the graveside, "I'll keep her safe," whispered to the wind-scoured earth. Now that vow faced a different storm, one woven from influence and silence. Sleep came fitful for Knox, stretched on the couch with one eye on the door, the USB tucked under his pillow like a talisman. Dreams blurred, Harleys thundering through desert sands, Sophia's childhood laughter echoing over gunfire. But morning yanked him awake with Rico's text. "Trouble at school. Ellis called in favors. Get here." The Harley tore through the mist-shrouded roads, dew-kissed fields flashing by as the sun crested the horizon, gilding the horizon in fire. Knox arrived at the admin building as the first buses rumbled in, parking with a skid that drew stares. Ellis waited in the lot, flanked by 2 deputies, local badges, Hargrove loyalists, their stances rigid under starched uniforms. "Mr. Ferreira," Ellis began, voice oily as he adjusted his tie, "we need to talk. That footage you took? Unauthorized, and those girls impressionable, you know. The councilman suggests we handle this internally, for the community's sake. Knox dismounted slow, his shadow stretching long across the asphalt, the air sharp with exhaust and tension. The deputies shifted, hands near belts, but Knox kept his empty, voice level. Internally means buried. My sister's hurt. Witnesses back it. You want internal. Hand over the full logs, every complaint against the Hargrove kid, past 5 years. One deputy, a stocky man with a mustache like wire, stepped forward. That's reaching, son. Councilman's word carries weight. Drop it, or we look into your crews. Activities. The threat hung, laced with the town's undercurrent of control, but Knox didn't flinch. Behind them, Emily hovered by the doors, backpack clutched like a shield, her eyes meeting his, a silent nod of alliance. Weight breaks under truth, Knox said, pulling out his phone. Call it off, or I hit send. Footage to the state board, every statement copied. Iron promise rides clean, but we don't bend. Ellis paled, whispering to the deputies, who exchanged uneasy glances. The standoff stretched, seconds ticking like a cooling engine, until the principal waved them back. Fine, logs. Later today, but this stays quiet. Knox watched them retreat, the building swallowing their figures, then turned to Emily. You good? She swallowed, voice a whisper. Yeah, Mia too. We're in. By midday, back at the garage with the promised logs in hand, yellowed files of hushed reports, patterns of aggression against 3 other girls over 2 years. Knox felt the momentum shift. He spread them on the workbench, grease-stained fingers tracing the faded ink, each entry a buried scream. Sophia arrived with Lena, the nurse's exam confirming the bruise's origin, a single strike, forceful but contained. Photos snapped, notes typed, the evidence piling like storm clouds. As afternoon heat baked the tin roof, Rico rolled in with jacks, saddlebags heavy with printouts from county whispers, donations funneled to silence, favors traded like currency. The crew gathered in the shade of the mesquite tree, voices low over cold sodas, the river's distant rush underscoring their resolve. Hargrove's calling a town meet tonight, Rico said, wiping sweat from his brow. To clear the air. Trap, probably. Knox nodded, the sun dipping toward the hills, casting elongated shadows across the yard. We go, not as bikers, as voices. For Sophia, for the girls. Truth rides with us. In that gathering dusk, with engines cooling and loyalties igniting, Knox sensed the turning point. The corruption's veil thinned, pierced by the unyielding light of promises kept. Redemption wasn't a blaze, it was this, steady hands rebuilding what power had broken, one ethical stand at a time. The iron promise would face the hall, not with roars, but with the quiet thunder of justice awakening. The town hall loomed on the square like a weathered courthouse from another era, its white clapboard facade glowing under floodlights as dusk bled into night. Strings of bulbs swayed in the breeze, casting flickering shadows across the parking lot, where pickups and sedans clustered like wary animals. Knox arrived early with the Iron Promise Corps, Rico on his flank, Lena trailing on her Indian, Jax and Maria bringing up the rear, their engines a low symphony that turned heads before they'd even parked. The air carried the sharp tang of barbecue from a nearby vendor, mingling with the undercurrent of tension, whispers from early arrivals, folks in flannel and boots milling with forced smiles. This meet wasn't community spirit. It was Hargrove's stage, a bid to polish the tarnish before it spread. Knox cut the Harley silent, the sudden quiet amplifying the murmur of the crowd spilling onto the steps. He adjusted his vest, the Iron Promise patch a subtle declaration amid the sea of locals, and scanned the faces, farmers he'd fixed bikes for, diner regulars who'd shared nods over coffee. Sophia stayed back at the garage, Lena's earlier check confirming her bruises as irrefutable evidence, but her absence weighed on him like an ungreased chain. This was for her, for the girls whose stories now filled his notebook. Hushed complaints, vanished reports, a web of protection spun from donations and threats. He felt the old scars pull tight across his ribs, echoes of battlefield silences where truth had been the first casualty, but tonight he'd break that pattern. Inside, the hall buzzed with folding chairs scraped into rows, the scent of polished wood and stale air, thick as the anticipation. Hargrove held court at the front, a silver-haired bull in a tailored suit, microphone in hand, his voice booming with practiced warmth. "Folks, we're here to address a regrettable incident at the dance. Youthful high spirits gone awry. Tyler's a good boy. Misunderstandings happen. Let's keep our community strong, not divided." Applause rippled, coerced and thin, from his allies clustered nearby, deputies in the back row, school board members nodding like puppets. Tyler slouched beside his father, eyes darting, the smirk from the gym replaced by a boy's unease under the lights. Knox claimed seats midway, the crew fanning out to flank him. Their presence a quiet wall against the tide. Rico leaned in, breath hot with mint gum. "He's spinning it already. Watch for the pivot. Blame the troublemakers." Knox nodded, his hand resting on the stack of papers in his lap, the USB copied to laptops, witness statements notarized by a neutral clerk Jax had called in from the next county. The principal, Ellis, hovered by the podium, avoiding Knox's gaze, sweat glistening on his brow like dew on a tense wire. As Hargrove wrapped his opener, inviting questions, the room stirred. A farmer near the front rose, voice hesitant. "Councilman, what about the girl? Sophia Ferreira. She's local, raised right. Heard she got hurt bad." Murmurs swelled, the air crackling like static before a storm. Hargrove's smile tightened, a politician's mask cracking at the edges. "A minor scuffle, sir. Both sides overreacted. We're mediating privately. No need for drama." Knox stood then, his frame unfolding like a shadow detaching from the wall, the creak of his boots echoing in the hush. All eyes turned, the lights hot on his face, casting his salt and pepper beard in stark relief. "Mediate?" His voice carried, steady as a low rev cutting through the hum. "With what? Buried files and scared girls?" He held up the folder, pages rustling like dry leaves. "I've got statements. Emily, Mia, 2 others. Patterns, not incidents. Aggression covered up for years. And footage." Gasps rippled. Phones emerged, recording the moment as he slotted the USB into a borrowed projector. The screen flickering to life behind the podium. Hargrove's face drained to ash, but he recovered with a bark of laughter. "This man's a mechanic, folks. Biker with an axe to grind. Iron Promise? We all know their reputation." The deputies shifted, hands twitching toward radios, but the crew held firm. Lena's gaze locked on a board member, Jax's bulk a deterrent in the aisle. The footage played, the gym's grainy chaos. Sophia's laugh fading to recoil, Tyler's arm a fleeting arc of shadow. The slap landed silent on screen, but the room recoiled as one, the impact visceral in the collective breath held. Ellis stammered from the side, "That's edited. Context matters." But a voice pierced from the back, Mia standing with Emily, her hands clasped white-knuckled. "No, I saw it too. And last year he grabbed me, left marks my dad hid to keep his job at your mill." The words tumbled, gaining strength, other faces nodding in the dimness. A mother whose daughter had transferred schools, a teacher whispering about ignored complaints. The hall transformed, the barbecue scent turning sour in the thickening air of revelation. Hargrove pounded the podium, veins bulging like overtaxed hoses. "Enough! This is slander! Deputies!" But Knox stepped forward, voice unyielding, the mechanic's precision in every word. "Slander needs proof. Yours is crumbling. State board gets this tomorrow. Full logs, photos from Lena's exam. Sophia's not alone, neither are they." He gestured to the girls, the crew, the shifting crowd, family chosen in the fire of this stand, loyalty a chain no influence could snap. The councilman faltered, eyes darting to the exits as calls for accountability swelled. Investigate. Protect our kids. Deputies hesitated, badges glinting under the lights, the weight of witnesses too heavy to dismiss. Rico rose beside Knox, adding gravel to the chorus. Iron holds. Truth does too. The meeting fractured. Chairs scraping as folk streamed out, conversations igniting like sparks on dry tinder, patterns exposed, the rot aired under the unblinking stars. Outside, the night air cooled Knox's skin, the floodlights buzzing overhead as the crew regrouped by the bikes. Lena clasped his arm, her touch firm. You did it. They can't bury this now. Sophia's text buzzed in. Heard from Emily. Town's talking. Thank you. Knox exhaled, the river's distant rush a soothing undertone to the chaos. This wasn't victory's roar, it was the quiet grind of justice turning, promises fulfilled in the face of corruption's retreat. Scars from old losses ached less, mended by the bonds that pulled him from solitude, the iron promise, Sophia's trust, the moral fire rekindled. As engines stirred awake, rumbling into the dark, Knox rode with the weight lifted, the road ahead clear for the reckoning still to come. If you're watching this and feeling that pull of family and justice, smash that like button right now. It helps spread these stories of quiet courage to more corners of the world. The morning after the town hall crackled with an uneasy hush, the kind that settles over a landscape after lightning strikes, but before the thunder rolls. Knox woke to the scent of dew-soaked earth filtering through the garage's open bay, his body stiff from the couch's unforgiving springs. The iron promise patch on his vest hung nearby, a silent sentinel in the pale light slanting across scattered tools. Sophia's bruise had faded to a mottled yellow under her eye, but the real marks lingered in her guarded glances, the way she stirred oatmeal with mechanical precision at the kitchen table. Last night's revelations had rippled outward. Texts from Emily confirming the buzz in group chats, Mia's hesitant voice message vowing to stand firm. But Knox knew the calm was a facade. Power like Hargrove's didn't yield. It coiled, waiting to strike from the shadows. He poured coffee, black and steaming, the mug's heat seeping into his palms like resolve. Crew's checking in soon, he said, sliding a bowl her way. Rico's got eyes on the school. No one's touching you today. Sophia nodded, spoon pausing mid-air, her voice a fragile thread. They stared at me in the hall last night, like I was the problem. But when you played that footage, something shifted. I felt it. Her eyes met his, the spark of the girl who'd once chased him on a tricycle amid their parents' laughter, now tempered by the world's sharper edges. Knox squeezed her shoulder, calluses rough against her shirt, the gesture carrying the weight of graveside oaths. Shifts stick when we hold the line. His phone buzzed then. Rico, terse as always. Meet at the diner. Trouble brewing. Bring the files. The Harley beckoned outside, its chrome dulled by overnight mist, and Knox mounted up, the engine's low growl vibrating through his bones as he left Sophia with Lena's number on speed dial. The diner on Main hummed with mid-morning traffic. The jukebox, crooning a faded ballad about lost highways, its notes weaving through the clatter of plates and the sizzle of bacon on the grill. Knox parked amid a row of pickups, the air thick with frying grease and the faint, acrid bite of tension. Rico waited in the corner booth, his marine frame hunched over a coffee, while Jax nursed a soda across from him, his welder's hands drumming the formica table like impatient pistons. Maria slid in beside Knox as he approached, her ex-cop instincts sharp in the quick scan of the room, locals averting eyes, a deputy lingering at the counter with a newspaper shield. Ellis caved partial, Rico started, voice gravel under the diner's hum, sliding a manila envelope across. More logs, 2 years back, a complaint from that transferred girl, Sarah. Grabbed her at a party, left signs of struggle, filed, then withdrawn, after Hargrove's donation to the PTA. Patton's ironclad now. Knox flipped the pages, faded ink revealing dates and vague descriptions. Witnessed altercation, minor injury unreported. No names bolded, but the connections hummed like live wires, donations, time-stamped days after each hush. Sarah? She still around? Jax leaned in, his limp forgotten in the urgency, breath carrying the tang of mint. Next county over. Works at a feed store. I called my cousin. She'll talk if we go quiet, but word's out. Hargrove's leaning on parents. Mia's dad got a visit this morning. Job security talk. Maria's eyes narrowed, her leather jacket creaking as she shifted. Classic. Isolate the voices. We need her protected. Rotate watches on her place tonight. The booth felt like a war room. Napkins scribbled with roots. The coffee cooling untouched as plans solidified. Outside, the sun climbed, baking the sidewalk, but inside, the air grew heavier, laced with the undercurrent of backlash. Knox pocketed the envelope, the paper crinkling like dry bones. Ride with me to Sarah. Rico, handle Mia. Get her statement on tape. Neutral spot. The crew dispersed with nods, engines coughing to life in the lot, a staggered exodus that drew stares from the diner's window. Knox and Maria hit the back roads first, the Harley's rumble syncing with her Indian's purr. Dust devils swirling in their wake as fields gave way to rolling hills dotted with grazing cattle. The feed store squatted on the outskirts of the next town, its silos casting long shadows, the air sharp with hay and fertilizer. Sarah emerged from the stockroom, wiping dust from her overalls, her face a map of quiet wariness, mid-20s, eyes shadowed like Sophia's now. You the biker from the hall? She asked, voice steady but low, glancing at the empty lot. Knox nodded, introducing Maria as the one who'd seen too many cover-ups in blue. They stepped into the shadowed barn, the scent of oats and leather grounding the confession that followed. It was a bonfire last summer, Sarah said, leaning against a bale, her fingers twisting a straw. Tyler got handsy, pinned me when I said no. Bruises on my arms, a shove that twisted my wrist. Told my folks, they went to the sheriff. Next day, the file's gone, and Dad's hearing whispers about his ranch loan getting called. Her gaze hardened, the memory etching deeper lines. Hargrove's boy thinks rules don't touch him, but after last night, if it helps that girl, I'll sign. Knox recorded it on his phone, the device's click echoing softly, Maria noting details in a spiral pad, the ethical weight of each word stacking like evidence in a vault. Protected, Knox promised, the iron promise code threading his tone. We ride for this. As they left, Sarah's nod lingered in the rear view, a fragile alliance forged in shared silence. Back on the highway, the wind whipped Maria's hair free, her voice carrying over the roar. This stacks high, Knox, but Hargrove's not done. Expect pushback. Legal noise, maybe? Knox gripped the bars tighter, the vibration rumbling up his arms, his mind flashing to Sophia's text. All quiet here. Miss you. The scars across his back itched, ghosts of deployments where loyalty had been the only light, now illuminating this fight against institutional rot. By afternoon, the garage became command central, papers spread across the workbench amid wrenches and oil cans, the sun slanting through dusty windows to gild the chaos. Rico arrived with Mia's tape, her voice trembling but clear. He cornered me after practice, grabbed my hair, slammed the locker. Dad said forget it for the mill job. Lena rolled in next, saddlebags bulging with Sophia's updated medical notes, photos of fading bruises, a timeline linking the strike to stress markers. The crew encircled the bench, voices overlapping in the warm light. Jax plotting patrols, Maria cross-referencing donations with complaints. Rico sketching a timeline on the wall with chalk that flaked like old paint. Sophia joined them quietly, perching on a stool, her presence a steadying force amid the frenzy. Emily's in too, saw the whole thing, even the whispers after. Says Tyler laughed about it later. The group paused, the weight of patterns pressing down. But Knox felt the shift, a moral momentum building, not through force, but the unbreaking chain of truth shared. As dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, a knock shattered the rhythm, sharp, insistent on the screen door. Knox rose, hand instinctively near his belt, the crew tensing like coiled springs. It was Ellis, hat in hand, face slick with sweat, under the porch light. Ferreira, the councilman's offering mediation, private, dropped the state board threat and Tyler apologizes. For the girl's sake. Knox stepped out, the door creaking shut behind him, the night air cool with impending rain. Mediation? After burying files on 4 girls? His voice was low thunder, eyes locking on the principal's fidget. Tell Hargrove the truth rides now, no deals. Ellis shifted, boots scuffing the porch. He's got pull, sheriffs backing off complaints. Push this, it gets ugly for everyone. The threat hung, laced with the town's cynical underbelly, but Knox's stance held, unyielding as the oak shading the yard. Ugly's what he made, Knox replied, the words a vow etched in the gathering dark. Ellis retreated to his sedan, taillights fading like retreating shadows, leaving Knox with the crew's affirming murmurs inside. Rain pattered first, then poured, drumming the tin roof like urgent drums, washing the dust from the air. That night, as lightning forked the horizon, Knox sat with Sophia on the porch swing, the downpour a curtain against the world. Water beaded on the railing, carrying the earthy scent of renewal. They'll fight dirty now, she said, leaning into him, her head on his shoulder. We fight clean, Knox murmured, arm around her. The warmth of family chosen, cutting the chill. The Iron Promise engines idled in the drive, Rico's watch starting, their low hum, a promise against the storm. Redemption's path twisted ahead, dilemmas of conscience sharpening with each revelation. But in this rain-lashed vigil, honor burned steady, a light no corruption could dim. The town's ignored violence faced exposure, peace by relentless peace, the moral fire of loyalty forging the way forward. The rain had tapered to a persistent drizzle by midnight, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and mesquite, the garage's tin roof still echoing faint drips like unresolved echoes. Knox paced the porch, his boots leaving muddy prints on the warped boards, while Sophia slept fitfully inside. The chamomile's herbal trace lingering in the humid night, the Iron Promise watches rotated silently, Rico's taillight fading down the drive, Jax's bulk settling into the shadows of the old truck for the next shift. Knox's phone lay silent on the railing, but he knew the quiet was deceptive. Hargrove's retreat wasn't surrender, just a regrouping in the dark. The files on the workbench inside mocked him, pages of buried truths, each one a thread in the web he'd begun to unravel, pulling at the conscience of a town long numbed by convenience. Dawn crept in grey and sodden, the horizon smeared with low clouds that clung to the hills like unspoken regrets. Knox brewed coffee strong enough to cut the fog in his head. The pot hissing, as steam rose in lazy spirals, mingling with the damp chill seeping through the cracks. Sophia emerged from her room, hair tousled, the bruise on her cheek now a faint shadow under concealer she'd applied with defiant care. Couldn't sleep, she admitted, wrapping her hands around a mug, the porcelain warm against the morning's bite. Dreamed of the dance again, the lights, the freeze. Knox nodded, leaning against the counter, his scarred knuckles drumming a silent rhythm. Dreams lie sometimes. Reality's what we shape now. His voice carried the gravel of sleepless hours, but beneath it the steady pulse of the promise he'd made over their parents' graves, a vow to shield her from the world's sharper cruelties. One he'd nearly let rust in the isolation of his garage life. The Iron Promise had reignited it, their loyalty a forge turning personal scars into collective steel. Rico's call shattered the quiet before the first sip, his tone clipped over the line's faint static. "Knox, get to the clinic. Lena's got company. Hargrove's lawyer, sniffing around Sophia's records. And Mia's spooked. Her dad's folding under pressure." The words landed like gravel in the engine, Knox's grip tightening on the phone until the plastic creaked. He hung up, eyes meeting Sophia's widened gaze. "Stay here. Lock it down. I'll handle this." The Harley snarled to life in the yard, tires slicing through puddles that mirrored the overcast sky, spraying arcs of water as Knox tore toward town. The roads gleamed slick under the weak sun, fields shrouded in mist that carried the faint, mineral tang of river mud. The clinic sat on the edge of Maine, a low brick building with a sign faded by years of Texas heat, its parking lot already dotted with early arrivals. Knox parked with a skid, the engine's echo dying as he strode through the double doors, the antiseptic scent hitting him like a clean break from the night's residue. Lena met him in the hallway, her scrubs crisp, but her expression taut, arms crossed over a clipboard like a shield. "They're in my office. Fancy suit from the city, flashing subpoenas for privacy review. Claims it's routine after the whole dust-up." Her voice dropped, eyes flicking to the closed door, where voices murmured low. I stalled with protocol, but he's pushing for Sophia's file, signs of the incident, photos, notes, says it's to protect the boy from false claims. Knox's jaw set, the air in the corridor thick with the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. He pushed past, the door swinging open to reveal the lawyer, a slick man in pinstripes, mid-40s. Perched on the exam table's edge, phone in hand like a weapon. Hargrove's influence radiated from him, the kind of polished threat that thrived in small-town cracks. "Mr. Ferreira," the man said smoothly, not rising, his cologne cloying in the sterile space. "We're just ensuring due process. Your sister's account. It contradicts witness recollections. Councilman wants this resolved amicably. No need for escalation." "Escalation's what you brought," Knox replied, voice level as a locked throttle, filling the doorway to block any easy exit. He glanced at Lena, who slid the file behind her back with a subtle nod. "Those photos, medical fact, bruising from a strike, dated, documented. You want them? Through channels, not here twisting arms." The lawyer's smile thinned, fingers tapping his phone screen. "Channels take time, and time exposes inconsistencies, like your crew's reputation, old rumors of rough rides. Councilmen can make life difficult for mechanics in this county." The threat uncoiled, laced with the cynicism Knox had seen too often, power preying on the vulnerable, burying justice under layers of favor. Lena stepped forward, her stance unyielding, the nurse's calm a counter to the intrusion. "This is a clinic, not a courtroom. Out, or I call the board myself." The man hesitated, eyes narrowing, but the weight of two unblinking gazes, Knox's quiet fury, Lena's professional steel, pushed him to his feet. He straightened his tie, muttering about further inquiries as he brushed past, the door clicking shut behind him like a loaded chamber. Outside, under the clinic's awning where rain pattered on the metal overhang, Knox exhaled into the mist. "They're testing seams. Mia?" Lena's phone buzzed, her face softening with relief. "Rico's with her now. Got her to a neutral spot, the old bridge overlook. Statements locked. She's naming the locker incident clear. No folding." Knox mounted up, the engines rumble a balm against the rising tension, but his mind raced ahead. Dilemmas twisting like backroads, push too hard, risk the crew's fragile peace, pull back, let the rot fester. The ride to the bridge wound through sodden woods, pines dripping jewels onto the path, the river below churning brown and restless. Rico waited there, his chopper parked beside a weathered picnic table where Mia sat, knees drawn up, Emily beside her like a sentinel. The girls' faces were pale against the green haze, but their nods held resolve as Knox approached, boots squelching in the mud. "We did it," Mia said first, voice gaining strength over the water's rush. Told it all, the grab, the threats after. Dad's mad, but enough. For Sophia. Emily added details, her words weaving into the pattern. Whispers of other unreported moments, a coach turning blind eyes for Hargrove's contributions to the team fund. Knox recorded it all, the device's lens capturing not just words, but the ethical fire in their eyes, the redemption of speaking against the silence that had bound them. "Iron holds you now," he said, pocketing the phone, the crew's oath extending like an unbreakable chain. As they rode back, the sun breaking through in hesitant shafts, Knox felt the moral suspense tighten. Hargrove's coils closing, but the truth's momentum unyielding. By midday, the garage thrummed with activity, the crew converging under the high ceiling where rain still drummed sporadically on the roof. Papers sprawled across every surface, statements stacked like ammunition, timelines chalked on a salvaged blackboard, Lena's medical logs cross-referenced with the unearthed complaints. Jax hunched over a laptop, his welder's fingers pecking keys to compile a digital dossier, while Maria paced, her ex-cop mind mapping legal angles, state oversight, anonymous tips to avoid direct retaliation. Sophia helped sort files, her movements precise, the bruise nearly hidden now, but the scar on her spirit mending with each revelation. Sarah called too, from the feed store. She's emailing her affidavit. Says the bonfire shove left her wrists sore for weeks. They called it an accident to keep the peace. The air hummed with purpose, scented by fresh oil and the faint, grounding aroma of cooling engines parked in the bay. Rico leaned against a workbench, arms crossed, his marine gaze steady on Knox. Hargrove's called a presser for tomorrow. Local paper, spinning family reconciliation. Trapped to paint us as agitators. The group fell quiet, the weight of institutional pushback settling like humidity before a storm. Knox traced a finger along the blackboard's lines, connecting dots from the dance to buried files, each link a step toward exposing the protected violence that had festered unchecked. "We go public first," Knox decided, voice cutting the hush like a key turning in a lock. "Share the core. Footage snippet, anonymized statements to the county forum online. Let the town see before he twists it." Murmurs of agreement rippled. The iron promises loyalty a quiet thunder, chosen family standing against the corruption's tide. But doubt flickered in Knox's chest. A psychological snag, the ghost of past failures whispering of costs. Sophia's safety, the crew's hard-won normalcy. Afternoon waned into a golden haze, the rain's gift washing the world clean as the crew dispersed on patrols, engines fading into the distance. Knox and Sophia sat on the porch steps, the wood still damp under them, watching fireflies wink in the early twilight. "This ends soon," she said, leaning into his side, the warmth of her shoulder a reminder of the promises that had survived loss. Their parents' crash, his war shadows, her quiet endurance. Knox draped an arm around her, the leather of his vest creaking softly. "Ends right, honor demands it." In that suspended moment, with the river's murmur carrying on the breeze, redemption felt tangible, not a distant horizon, but the steady path they carved together, justice's quiet roar building to its inevitable crest. The town's moral veil thinned further, the weight of ignored patterns forcing a reckoning, one loyal stand at a time. The county forum online lit up like a flare in the pre-dawn hush, Knox's fingers hovering over the laptop keys in the garage's dim glow, the screen's blue light carving shadows across his weathered face. Rain from the night before had left the air thick with petrichor, seeping through the open bay door where the Harley's frame loomed like a faithful steed, droplets still beading on its chrome. He'd edited the upload meticulously, a 30-second clip from the gym footage, Sophia's recoil blurred just enough for anonymity, overlaid with redacted statements, pinned and bruised, shoved with force, threats to silence. No names, but the pattern screamed. Years of protected aggression, donations time-stamped like bribes in the unearthed logs. Rico had proofread it twice, his gravelly approval a nod over cold coffee. Lena had stamped the medical notes with ethical seals, her nurse's precision turning vulnerability into armor. "Hit send at 6, Knox murmured to the empty space, the click echoing like a chambered round. This wasn't rage, it was the quiet detonation of truth, the iron promise's oath manifesting in pixels and words, forcing the town's conscience to stir from its cynical slumber. By sunrise, the forum buzzed, farmers logging in over breakfast plates, teachers scrolling during prep, the digital ripples spreading faster than gossip at the diner. Knox stepped outside, the first rays piercing the mist-shrouded fields, gilding the mesquite leaves in hesitant gold. Sophia joined him on the porch, her steps light but sure, the faint shadow under her eye now a badge of survival rather than shame. "It's out there," she said, voice steady against the awakening birdsong, handing him a thermos of coffee that steamed in the cool air. Emily texted, her mom's reposting. People are asking questions. Knox sipped, the bitter heat grounding him, his arm brushing hers in silent solidarity. The scars on his knuckles, remnants of a deployment dust-up, fists clenched against unseen enemies, felt less like burdens now, woven into the tapestry of this fight. Their parents' promise echoed in the quiet, protect the fragile, stand unbowed. He'd nearly let it fade in the garage's isolation, wrenching engines to drown the ghosts, but Sophia's message had revved it back to life. The Iron Promise crew, amplifying the roar into a symphony of loyalty. Rico's truck rumbled up the drive first, kicking gravel like punctuation, followed by the staggered growl of bikes, Jax's low-slung cruiser, Maria's agile scout, Lena trailing with her medical bag strapped secure. They gathered in the yard, leather vests catching the light, faces etched with the night's vigilance. No incidents, but whispers of Hargrove's panic filtering through back channels. "Forum's exploding!" Rico said, unfolding a printout of comments, the paper crinkling in the breeze. "100 shares already. That lawyer from the clinic?" He's scrambling. Called the paper, but they're holding for verification. Maria nodded, her ex-cop poise unbroken, eyes scanning the horizon like radar. "State boards involved now? Anonymous tip from Jax's cousin. They're auditing the school's logs, cross-checking donations. Hargrove's presser? Cancelled. Word is the sheriff's distancing himself, badges twitching under the spotlight." The crew's energy hummed, a chosen family forged not in blood, but in the road's unforgiving miles. Ex-soldiers, healers, builders united by the code Knox had helped etch after his own redemption from the bottle's grip. They weren't storming gates. They were the steady tide eroding corruption's foundations, justice poetic in its patience. Knox felt it in his chest, the psychological knot of doubt loosening, dilemmas of pushing too far, risking backlash on Sophia or the club, resolved in the collective stand. This was honor's legacy, action silent but seismic, consequences rippling outward. Mid-morning brought the first cracks in the facade. Knox's phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. The local paper's editor, voice tentative over the line's faint crackle. "Mr. Ferreira, we've seen the forum. Councilman Hargrove's in my office now, demanding a retraction. But those files, they match what we've buried before. Can you confirm?" Knox kept it brief, factual, the mechanic's clarity cutting through. Truth doesn't retract. By noon, the story broke online, a measured piece headlined, "Shadows at the Dance, Patterns of Silence in Our Town," embedding the anonymized evidence, quotes from Mia and Emily veiled but potent. The air in the garage thickened with the scent of fresh ink from printed copies Jax fetched, the crew poring over them like battle maps. Hargrove's estate, visible from the ridge road, stood isolated now, its white fences a mockery under the climbing sun. Knox rode solo for the confrontation, the Harley devouring miles with purposeful throbs, wind carrying the faint brine of distant salt flats. Deputies flanked the gate, but their postures sagged. No radios barking orders, just uneasy glances as Knox idled, engine a low warning. The councilman emerged onto the porch, suit rumpled, silver hair disheveled, Tyler trailing like a ghost behind him, face pale, eyes downcast. The cocky smirk evaporated in the light of exposure. "Ferreira!" Hargrove called, voice stripped of its boom, hands empty at his sides. The air hung heavy with cut grass and defeat, the ranch's sprawl feeling smaller, exposed. "This has gone far enough. The boy's sorry, deeply. We'll make it right. Counseling, restitution to your sister. No charges, if we all move on." Knox killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the river's murmur in the valley below. He dismounted slow, boots firm on the gravel, his frame a pillar against the man's crumbling authority. Right means facing it, not burying. Those girls, Sophia, Mia, Sarah, Emily, they spoke. The town heard. Patterns end here, or the state digs deeper. His words landed even, laced with the moral steel of promises kept, no fury but unyielding integrity. Tyler shifted, mumbling, "I didn't mean..." But Hargrove silenced him with a look, the weight of institutional rot cracking under the scrutiny. The councilman exhaled, shoulders slumping like a deflating bellows. "What do you want? The truth's out. Tyler's suspended, school's auditing donors. I'll step back from the board, for the community." Knox held his gaze, the sun warming his vest. The iron promise patch, a quiet emblem of redemption earned. Want justice, clean, no more shadows. He turned then, remounting without another word, the engine awakening with a throaty sigh that echoed the town's awakening conscience. Behind him, Hargrove watched the dust settle, the first threads of accountability weaving tight. Back at the garage, the crew waited, engines cooling in the shade as Sophia emerged with cold drinks, her smile breaking free like sunlight through clouds. The forum updates scrolled on the laptop, calls for reform, parents vowing oversight, the sheriff's office issuing a statement on thorough review. Lena documented the resolution's edges, counseling mandated, complaints reopened, while Rico clapped Knox's shoulder. The gesture heavy with brotherly pride. Iron held, you led it home. As evening draped the yard in soft indigo, fireflies dancing like celebratory sparks, Knox sat with Sophia on the porch swing, the chains creaking gently in the breeze. The bruise was gone now, her laughter tentative but real, cutting through the night's jasmine-scented hush. "You kept the promise," she said, head on his shoulder, the warmth of family chosen mending old fractures. "We did," Knox replied, voice low as the fading light, scars from losses past now badges of battles won. The iron promise bikes idled nearby, a vigilant circle, their loyalty the true legacy. Redemption not in glory, but in the quiet honor of standing for the vulnerable against corruption's tide. The town had confronted its ignored darkness, justice emerging poetic and whole, promises enduring like the road itself, endless, unbreaking. Thanks for riding along on this journey of loyalty and quiet courage. If these stories of redemption and family touch you, hit that subscribe button and join us for more. Your support keeps the iron promise alive.